Stories are trying to reconcile the mental with the physical. My name is Osajimebi, and every week I will tell you a short story written by a Nigerian writer or author. That's the long and short of it. So without much ado, this week's story is by Kegbu Blossom, and it's titled Conflict. He was not a bad man. He stood in his black uniform with the police badge plastered across the top right and worn-out shoes disguised with layers of polish.
"We have confirmed the body,"
he said to her, his entire aura laced with sympathy. He had the sort of decorum you had around someone going through hell, but you simply could not relate and were grateful it was not you. So you moved around them with an apology at the tip of your tongue, hoping you could provide some sort of comfort even though you knew you could not. You did not do this because you sincerely cared for the person. You did it so that you could go to bed tapping yourself on the back and calling yourself a good person. That was what this officer was doing. He had apologized for her loss. He even held her hand at a point. He was not a bad man. So why did she feel like he was the devil, hovering around her with the horns on his head and destruction on his tongue? Why did she push him and call him a liar? Why had she called him a useless animal? He did not matter anymore. The damage was done. That was 2 weeks ago. She was irritated at how normal everything was. Her husband, Shegun, still got up at 6 a.m. to listen to Papa Tonye preach about forgiveness and the importance of giving to the church. Shegun still sang the same 2 worship songs before taking his bath for work. He still drank his Milo in a tall steel cup that reflected a distorted image of the room. He still ate an entire loaf of bread and watched Arise News after work. The neighbors continued to flag her husband down to join him in his dying Peugeot. She was a housewife, and she was still a housewife in the small 2-bedroom flat her husband rented. People did not change their routines. The world did not stop in its tracks. Her son was dead. Her 7-year-old boy, who would run around and say, "Ẹ káàárọ̀," to everyone in the compound before going to school. The one that told her to not worry about the people laughing at their old car. Daddy told me that God will soon give him a very big Jeep, like the one the president used to drive. He would say, his naivety manifesting a certain hope in her heart. Her son, the one she woke up early to make jollof rice for with tinned fish. The one she sold her married wrappers for to buy new shoes when she heard the neighbors laughing at his old pair. He was gone. And after everyone compensated their conscience with their brief visits and condolence messages, they looked forward and continued with their lives like normal. "Amaka, it will be all right," they said. She did not blame anybody. Not even her husband. She knew she killed him. She had left him an entire 30 minutes. Her husband had called and asked that she prepare vegetable soup for him. So she did. She told herself that it would be all right, that she just had to quickly finish the soup and she would run to his school. She was too late. By the time she got there, he was gone. She later heard that 3 other children were missing. By the next week, it was reported as a kidnapping. And the week after that, a small body covered with white cloth was lying by the dump at the end of her street. The police officer had confirmed that it was her son. She had pushed him and called him a liar. But she was the one who was lying. She had been lying all this time. She killed her son. And as long as she lived, she would never forgive herself. She had always been worthless. An illiterate who was lucky enough to find a man who could tolerate her enough to house and feed her. She gave herself to him. He planted a seed in her, and she finally had something to call her own, her son. She would be like those women who waltz around with pride, shining through the light of their child's glory. Femi, her son, made her whole, and she killed him. Left him out in the playground of his school to die. Why should she give herself the luxury of living in peace after she had committed such a great sin? One day blended into another, and although her world was shattered beyond repair, life went on as it usually did. It was Sunday. They had arrived an hour early, as they always did, so that Sheku could pray with the other deacons. She sat by herself, where a few weeks ago, Femi sat on the same seat next to her. The pastor spoke slowly, calling out one word after another. He talked about forgiveness. She was indifferent to his message at first, but her interest was piqued when he spoke of amends, about how certain sins require we take some sort of action to earn our forgiveness. Amends. The word echoed in her head days after the service. Then she decided she would make amends. She would resolve the conflict raging within her. She would forgive herself. She would come to terms with what had already been done and make peace. By these amends, I ask for your forgiveness, she said to her reflection. And for these amends, I forgive you. Lying in a pool of blood as he walked in, Shegun dropped his office bag and ran to his wife's side, shouting her name while shaking her lifeless body. He saw the note. Sometimes you have to earn your forgiveness. So with my life, I make amends for my great sin. As I draw my last breath, my sin is forgiven. Kegbu Blossom is a writer who resides in Calabar Cross River. She is a fifth-year medical student and a short fiction writer. You can read more of her work on Eco Africa and connect with her on Instagram at read_Kegbu. Details and links will be in the episode description. If you've got a story you would like to be featured on this podcast, or a published book you want to make into an audiobook, send an email to info@osadumebi.com or send me a message at osadumebi on either Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or X. I look forward to collaborating with you. And if you've enjoyed this week's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and tell someone, everyone, that stories are a good escape for a few minutes each week.